It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back into another episode of Around the 412. I'm Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Be sure to follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. Also, check us out on YouTube if you have not already. Watch the show over there. Hit subscribe. If you hit the notification bell, you'll never miss a video. Unfortunately, if you missed out on Steelers season already, this is a Steelers show. You missed out on the Steelers Saturday sit down. And like I said, a couple weeks ago, had an empty feeling when the Steelers season ended, but never miss when we go live. In a couple months, we'll be going live for the NFL draft. So tune in for that. Also, all the episodes that get posted onto YouTube. Also, check us out on the listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Where you find us, we're there. Search Around the 412. Follow the channel. Leave a 5-star review. Helps us out a lot. You can also check out the description of every show, whether it's on YouTube or the listening platforms. And you can check out all of our great sponsors that you're going to hear about throughout the show. I don't know if this is a good way to put it, but I was thinking about the weather that basically the whole country has been experiencing over the last few days. And it was quite the cold front, quite the snowstorm. I know my parents sent me a picture of good old Beaver, PA, and they had about like 15, 16 inches outside of their house. And my dad parked one of his cars up off of the street, and it was buried in the snow. But I feel like that is a good representation of how it probably felt whenever Steeler fans found out just a week prior, or not even a week prior, a few days ago, that Mike McCarthy was the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was official as of Saturday. We're a few days behind, but we have not talked about it yet. Mike McCarthy is the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I relate that to the winter storm because I feel like everything was going good. Like, I feel like the winter hadn't been that harsh so far. Like, yeah, so there's some snow here and there. There's some cold weather here and there. But we really hadn't had anything that bad. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this cold front comes along, sweeps across the entire nation, and it is affecting everybody in a negative light. And I feel like Steeler Nation got affected in a negative light. Fair to Mike McCarthy or not, that the process and the decision-making of the Pittsburgh Steelers, of Art Rooney II, and how they handled their coaching hire, it felt like this cold front. It felt like this snowmageddon, whatever name you want to call it. I just can't help but relate the two. It just seems like everything almost came to a halt for what was seemingly a good winter so far. It seemed like there was a lot of hope going out of this Mike Tomlin stepping down. And all of a sudden, we got hit with a snowstorm on Saturday, and Mike McCarthy is now the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
On Saturday, I'm sitting there, and I thought it was a fake account at first when it got sent to me, just because I thought there was no chance that they would make the hire. It was the timing that I thought was weird to me, being that, the Rams guys, which we had talked so much about, they weren't playing till the following day, so didn't even get to talk to those guys a second time. So they only did in-person interviews with 3 people, and Anthony Weaver was the only one that they talked to twice. So more so than anything else to me, the timing part was what I really couldn't believe. And I know you had texted me, it was like, should we do a video sooner? And I probably would have been willing to, but Alan and I had to record an emergency podcast, obviously, for Mike, which, by the way, I know this isn't Steelers Afternoon Drive. There's a lot of crossover, though, with me being on both. I mentioned Around the 412 on there all the time. I talk about Steelers Afternoon Drive on here all the time. That episode, we have over 500 comments on last Saturday's episode. Probably a lot of dislikes as well. I haven't looked at that, but 11,000 plus views as well. Did crazy. Hopefully you guys also tune into this episode. Here's what I'll say. In this, before we get into the good about Mike McCarthy and can talk about his introductory press conference, just going back to my feeling from Saturday, and I put out a short video, and I thought that my thoughts, even though they were in the moment, and sometimes I can be overly emotional and incoherent with my thoughts, I thought I did a good job conveying that. To me, it was more about the process than the hire, because I don't want this to come across as me thinking Mike McCarthy's a bad football coach. Heck, might be a great football coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe it was a good hire, but it was a bad process, and I don't know how that's undeniable. Or I don't get it. I don't understand how you can argue that this was a bad process, because if Mike McCarthy is the candidate that you were looking for, which obviously was the case, the way that they propped him up, talked about the quarterback development track record, why was your candidate pool not guys like Kevin Stefanski and Cliff Kingsbury if you were looking for something like that? And if you're looking for like a retread on the offensive side, throw Mike McDaniel in there as well. If you were looking for like just a veteran head coach, like it would have been super weird. John Harbaugh, how do you not like consider that a possibility? How do you not consider, I know that it looks like he's not going to coach this year, but Sean McDermott, talked about Robert Saleh. Like their candidate pool just didn't make any sense to me if this was what they were looking for. So that's to me why it was a bad process. And the argument that I've had with some people was them saying, does it really matter if the process was bad if the hire ends up being good? And to me, the answer is yes. Because first off, I'm always a process over results guy because the process is more important. The reason being is even if this hire is a home run, even if they win a Super Bowl or more with Mike McCarthy, at his age, this is not going to be a long-term thing. What reason do I have to believe that they're going to do better in the hiring process next time, which is going to be in a short period of time relative to the amount of time that we're used to there being between Steelers head coaches? I don't know. There's just something that's off to me about this process. So Omar is the one that puts together the candidate pool, and then Art Rooney picks from that. Clearly, there was a lack of cohesiveness between those two in terms of putting that together, because the candidate pool made absolutely no sense for who they ultimately hired.
I agree. And I think that I'll just say, I thought your video did a pretty good job of conveying that you were talking about the process. I didn't come away from your video on Saturday thinking that you were really talking in a negative light about Mike McCarthy. And that's why I also said a few minutes ago, like this is not to take away anything from Mike McCarthy, like me giving that intro, you talking about that video on Saturday. It's almost like, and you mentioned this in the video and in tweets and everything, you have to put him in a vacuum when you have this discussion, and you have to have it. It's separate. I understand that he is the catalyst of it because he's the ultimate hire, but that's kind of not the point of the conversation that you were having in your video, or that like we're going to have right now. That I agree 100%. The biggest problem about this is not Mike McCarthy. It's the way that the Steelers handled it. How do you, for an organization that is historically slow processed moving, especially when it comes to the head coach position, you've had 3, now 4, since 1969. How do you have just a handful of virtual interviews? Most of those guys don't even get into the facility. You have 3-person interviews. One of those guys is one of the virtual interviews you also had, being Anthony Weaver. One of those guys is Brian Flores, and the other was Mike McCarthy. And if the Rooney Rule didn't exist, and I know this is not like something new, people have already said this. If the Rooney Rule didn't exist, Mike McCarthy probably doesn't leave the facility on Wednesday without being the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so if that is the process that you take, you're a slow-moving organization, especially when it comes to a decision like this at that position. How are you getting 3 guys in your facility for an interview?
I will say I was told
that small.
I was told that the reason there was nobody Thursday, because you mentioned McCarthy Wednesday, and then it was not Weaver was there Friday, Thursday was open. That was supposed to be Jesse Minter, but they were told he was taking the Baltimore job.
Okay. That's fair. I mean, who knows? Maybe they were interested in getting an interview with Halfley, and then he ended up in Miami. So that could have been another one that fallen off the board. But even still,
oh yeah.
I don't know how you go into this process and you only bring in 3 guys for in-person interviews, none of which are no matter what the order of where the board was for the Steelers, like Chris Shula, Nate Scheelhaus, neither of those guys got in-person interviews. And it has been reported, and we touched on it last week. Not much about there's speculation.
Yeah, I can't
about
speak
the
to the
Shula
interview.
interview.
Yeah,
can't speak to that. And I know other people have said the same thing, but like that Scheelhaus, they were blown away by it, and that it was
if people are lumping that in and saying that was he did poor. I mean, I'm calling BS on that immediately.
Yeah, no. I'm not trying to say that the Shula interview that he did poorly on it. I think that the Scheelhaus one, That's the one that's more like notable to me, especially with them ultimately deciding to make an offensive side of the ball hire. If the one thing that they're hung up on is that he has not called plays yet in the NFL, then so be it. But how do you not get those guys in the room? How do you not make that interview process? Especially all you had to do was wait 2 days. And here's the kicker too, is that not only did you have to wait 2 days, Mike McCarthy still would have been there if you would have waited to interview those guys. And then again, this is has nothing to do with Mike McCarthy, the coach, the man, nothing to take away from his success and what he could potentially do with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It has everything to do with criticizing how Art Rooney II, how Omar Khan and the Pittsburgh Steelers front office and ownership ultimately decided to handle this process. Because I genuinely feel like what I mentioned a few seconds ago and what other people had mentioned, so I'm not going to take credit for that idea, but it seems like as soon as the Rooney Rule was justified, they knew Mike McCarthy was their guy. And it was the easy hire, it was the safe hire, and it was the hire that it felt like they were always going to make, despite the cries from the fan base about wanting a younger coach, despite the cries from going outside of Pittsburgh ties. Ultimately, they hire the Pittsburgh guy, and Mike McCarthy is the head coach. Nothing to do with the man, nothing to do with the coach. The process is absolutely backwards to how I would want a future coaching search to go. Because you said it, like Mike McCarthy is 62 years old. He is not going to be here for 19 years like Mike Tomlin was. So we're probably talking about, if everything goes great, sometime within the next 10 years, we are going to be having another coaching search. And is Art Rooney II, is Omar Khan, if that's what the ownership and the front office looks like in that next time frame, based off of the experience that we just had, is that what we want again whenever it comes to picking their next head coach? I'm not confident in that.
I will say,
because I don't like how quickly and rash they made this process seem.
I thought it was notable Danny Rooney being in the picture too. I'm not saying that like we're in the process of that transition taking place, but I think he's got influence already. Like that's already started where he has influence. If he is like, again, not going to say that we're going to in the next few years see Art Rooney hand this team down. But we obviously know who next in line is in Danny Rooney. And I thought it was notable with him being involved in that picture that was taken.
Yeah, and I think that's fair.
And he's more of a football guy.
He is more a football guy, and I think that's fair. So maybe the next hire won't go like this time around. But if Art 2 is still around the next time a head coach is done, because I'm saying like that's best case scenario that we're looking at, like maybe 10 years down the road, we're looking for another head coach, because that would mean that Mike McCarthy had a ton of success in Pittsburgh. If things early on, now we know he signed the 5-year contract.
I think honestly, I think 3 is the minimum.
3's the minimum, but when I say early on, I mean just this one contract. If things do not go well over these next 4 to 5 years, and they move on from him after this first contract as head coach, then you're looking at the same front office and the same ownership group doing the hiring process for the next head coach. And it was a process that I have little to no faith in. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. Nothing to do with Mike McCarthy as a coach. I think that he is a fine coach, arguably a good coach. But it's just the way the Steelers organization is operating is not the way that I think that they should be operating for success.
Yeah, we'll touch more on that. Definitely got to get an ad in here. We're already 14 minutes in. I do want to relate this back. I promise at some point here, we're going to stop talking about Mike Tomlin and move on. But there was a thought that occurred to me that ties back to Tomlin. I'll tell you about it when we come back. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412 here. Got to take a quick second to tell you about our friends at Game Changers. That's their logo. This is one of their shirts. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Doesn't matter if it's sports, music, movies. They got you covered with their designs. Over 5,000 different designs in that catalog over there. GameChanger.la or Pick6.la. You'll save yourself $10 when you use the code AT412 on your order. The link is below to both of those sites. Go check out their entire catalog. Again, 5,000 different designs. If you go with the black or the white, it'll be true to size. If you go with the pepper, which I'm wearing right now, or the ivory, they'll be a bit oversized. It's a heavyweight material. Beautiful stuff. Go check them out. And again, save yourself $10 using code AT412 at checkout. I had a thought occur to me when I really digested this hire. And we've seen as Steelers fans them kick the can down the road at the quarterback position, the most important position for quite a few years now. It's impossible to do that at head coach, but this felt like the closest thing to doing that was hiring Mike McCarthy and kicking the can down the road on the hire, because they basically said, yeah, we know at some point you got to take the swing on a head coach, but we're not going to do that right now. We're going to look for the closest thing to continuing the Mike Tomlin window, which will be hiring Mike McCarthy. The inverse in terms of the side of the football that his background is in, and I think that you'll see that reflected. But just from, honestly, perception and also the floor that he brings, but maybe also a limitation on the ceiling, this felt like the closest hire they could make to kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, not to try to be a continuation of the meme that didn't really make a ton of sense because there was only one season where the Steelers actually went 9-8. But I thought that this is a hire where you have a higher floor than potentially one of these younger guys that are going to be first-time head coaches, but your ceiling is lacking. And this is the closest thing that you're probably going to get to having that floor being around that 9-8 window. And I think that that's why I said it's the safest option. Mike McCarthy, to me, is the safest option because of that floor that you're going to get. And I think that is it ownership just not being willing to accept a rebuild and
100%.
really rip that Band-Aid off? Because I just have a hard time seeing why you do not try to, completely rip off from what you have been the last decade. And
Mike Tomlin gave them an out.
Mike Tomlin gave them an out. And Art Rooney II decided to just basically continue with the same thing, except on the offensive side of the football. And that's why if Mike McCarthy, and I'll feel bad for the man, if he does not win a playoff game in his first year or two, because it's going to be the same exact thing, except they're going to be.
I just got really pissed off.
They're going to be yelling to fire him in year 2, except instead of year 18 and 19. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense from an ownership group standpoint. Why would you not want to potentially raise your ceiling by ultimately, maybe you lower your floor for a year or two, but look at some of these teams too that do lower their floor? Because here's another thing. The whole no losing season thing is out the window. It's not the same head coach. If Mike McCarthy or whoever they would have brought in had a losing season in year 1, whether it was Chris Scholla, Nate Shieldhouse, or Mike McCarthy, whoever, it doesn't matter anymore. It does not matter. Mike Tomlin is gone. That record is staying pat. There's no way that they can infringe on that record. So whatever happens in 2026 with the Steelers has nothing to do with Mike Tomlin's winning record. It does not matter if you have a winning season in 2026. But instead, they choose the closest thing, and it's almost like they're acting like that record still matters, that the winning season thing, and then they're going to play like it is. They are absolutely 100% going to act like it's a continuation of Mike Tomlin's record, albeit he's not going to be there, so they can't say it's 20 seasons in a row, but they're just going to talk about how the Steelers have not had a losing season since yada, yada, yada. And ultimately, that does not matter if you want your franchise to get better. I think the Patriots are a perfect example of what we're looking at. And you get they also had a perfect situation, by the way, where Mike Vrabel was let go by the Tennessee Titans. I remember you and I talking about that on Around the 412, where we thought that was a bit premature by the Titans. We thought that Mike Vrabel was a head coach, takes a year off of coaching. And whenever the Mayo thing doesn't work out in New England, he gets replaced. Mike Vrabel gets to step in with a year 2 of Drake May. How'd they get Drake May? Oh, wait, they sucked and were able to draft a quarterback high. And now they're playing in the Super Bowl again. Will they win it? No. Am I going to say that they're the Brady Patriots in the early 2000s? No, they have to win the Super Bowl. But to be in the situation that they are after being what they were 5 years ago with the last years of Belichick and Cam Newton being in the Patriots and looking at where they were, I would take that 100% if I knew that the Steelers are going to be in the Super Bowl in 3 or 4 years, if it meant bottoming out for 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: there's a lot of luck that has to go into that. I mean,
For sure.
Case in point, Drake May was the third quarterback that was taken in his own class. Like the draft class obviously has to be strong. Like the Steelers could have done that this past season, been drafting third overall in this draft class. What's that getting them? You know, so like I think that it just kind of the stars have to align in a particular way for that to happen. It obviously makes their odds better, for sure. I had a thought in my mind though, and I was like, I got to hold on to this until he's done talking. Please remember, because I was getting so upset this weekend. This is not at all related to what you were just talking about, but I was getting so upset reading people's tweets this weekend that were like, "This is what you asked for with not wanting Tomlin here anymore." I was going nuts. I typed up so many tweets to people and then deleted them because I was like, a lot of these people I like. I'm not going to get into an argument with them online over a difference of opinion, but that is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard in my life. So I'll make the public service announcement now to those people. I like you. That's the dumbest thing that I've ever heard in my life, because wanting a fresh start from Mike Tomlin does not mean that you had to be on board with whoever the hell they decided to hire as the next guy. The two options were not Mike Tomlin or Mike McCarthy. That didn't have to be the case. So I think that was the dumbest thing that was happening, honestly, this past weekend. I don't think the dumbest thing was the Steelers process. I think the dumbest thing was the tweets that I was seeing. Somehow that was even dumber in regard to the team hiring Mike McCarthy. No, everybody that wanted Mike Tomlin gone did not automatically mean that they wanted Mike McCarthy as their next head coach. It wasn't Tomlin or McCarthy. The people we're talking with.
Maybe it wasn't Art's head.
Yeah, well, apparently it was. The people that were saying anybody over Tomlin were talking with hyperbole. But to be honest, Alan put out a poll. I'd be curious to get your thought on this. Alan put out a poll and said, just for 2026, who would you rather have as the head coach? Tomlin or McCarthy? I'm curious as to what you would have voted on that.
I think, well, there's so many variables to that, by the way, because who's
if you want to take him into account, go ahead.
Everything
the same. Everything the same. Besides that.
So you're saying like Aaron Rodgers is coming back? Is that what we're talking about? Basically the same exact team that we had in 25.
Well, we're about to talk about that when we talk about the press conference. Yes.
Right, but like for this question, you're talking about 25 going into 26, basically the same roster. Who would we rather have? Maybe this is a hot take, but like I'd rather just take the swing on seeing what would be different and say McCarthy.
I said the same, because it's only for one season. That's how the question was posed. So maybe I'm cheating and reading into that, but I mean, my thought was you're only talking about for one season. So for the case of one season, why have it be exactly like the known that we've had for, I'm not to say all 19, because obviously early on it went super well. I'm not saying it went poorly in the last 9 years, not decade or whatever. They still had moderate success, but
yeah, I mean, they won the division this year. They won the division in a division that they should have ran away with, but they ultimately won the division.
To me, being something different. That is ultimately what it came down to.
100%.
So, all right, let's talk about the press conference, though, because I want to get into some positives here. And I think there's a lot of positives to be taken away from this press conference because, number one, and this is not me putting on a cape by any means for Mike McCarthy. This did not sway my opinion on the way that the process went. Still was not the hire that I would have liked the team to make. But I would be lying if I told you that I thought it wasn't cool to watch that opening of the press conference and watch Mike McCarthy get emotional talking about it. I almost got emotional talking about it. Because I think that it's easy to relate as somebody that obviously, like, you know, a lot of people take offense to the fact that we even have 412 in the title of this podcast because we're not.
You guys are from Beaver County. We're on the 724.
I have 412 tattooed on my finger. I have a 412 necklace. I love Pittsburgh. I love what it's about. I love the people. I love the sports teams. It's on my hat right now. It's on my hoodie right now as well because I'm also wearing one of our hoodies. I love this city. I love the sports teams. I love the people of Pittsburgh. I love what it represents. And Mike McCarthy obviously carries that with him as well. So I just think as somebody sitting in my position, somebody that loves this game, appreciates the nuances of it, it was very easy to almost feel like that was me, like in his spot today during that press conference. And, growing up, you want to play the game for sure. But as you get older, you start thinking about like, what would life have been after that? Honestly, I'm not saying it's like too late for it to happen, but like, if I'm ever blessed to have children, and I'm ever so blessed to have a son, I would love for him to get into football so I can get into coaching. I love that aspect of sports because I think it goes beyond the field. And just hearing Mike McCarthy talk about today Pittsburgh and what it meant to him, it was awesome. And it doesn't, again, mean that I'm all of a sudden wishy-washy and saying this is the guy all along and this is the hire they should have made. But it's easy to appreciate that aspect of it. A guy coming home to coach the team that he grew up rooting for.
100%. And I think that if you watch that press conference, especially all the way through, and we can get into this as well, like there are definitely some things that I don't love that he talked about. That give me some pause that he was saying, but ultimately the intro, the way he was talking about the city of Pittsburgh, being from Greenfield, I think that anybody who watched that, whether you agree with the signing or not to bring him in as head coach, you can get behind this guy to root for him as your head coach. For one, I think you're dumb if you don't, because he's the head coach of your football team. Why would you want him to fail? Ultimately, but also when you see what the passion of the city, the passion for this team means to Mike McCarthy, it is easy to want this guy to succeed. Like I want him to have more success after watching that press conference than I did prior. Not to say that I didn't want him to have success, but like just seeing the emotion behind his reason for wanting to coach the Pittsburgh Steelers is something that I can get behind. And I thought I agree with you 100% that it was like very moving to see him that way. Like Pittsburgh is his home, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited to have a coach that I guess maybe I was not around. Neither of us were around. We weren't born yet whenever Cowher got hired. But maybe this is how a similar way people felt whenever Cowher got hired, someone that was from the Pittsburgh area. It's like one of your it's one of your own, and you want this guy to succeed. So I can get behind that. No matter how I feel about the rest of it, I can get behind a Yinzer coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers and hoping for that he does the best that he can do. Now, can we get into a couple of the things I didn't love that he talked about?
Yes, but hold that thought because we got to tell the people about Keek's Barbershop first.
Okay.
What's going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412 had to take a quick second to tell you about our friends at Keek's Barbershop. That's Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkage Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app, The Cut, book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do a walk-in with Tony or Ashley. Again, download the app, The Cut, to book an appointment today, or they do take walk-ins as well. Could not imagine going anywhere else. Old school vibe in there. Check them out. I'm curious to see where you go with this because don't get me wrong. I'm not going to offer too much pushback because I think a lot of things you would say I'm also going to agree with would be concerning. But we've had this conversation in the past and we've seen it play out where like we know actions mean more than words. Mm-hmm. But I think there were definitely some notable things to take away from today too.
Yeah, and I also know that press conferences, they're kind of a tricky situation because like you want the guy to be as honest as possible, but he's not going to absolutely grill somebody. I know we've had conversations about that in the past, especially with like the Penguins and looking at the way like Mike Sullivan would talk about players in the past. Mm-hmm. So I take things with a grain of salt when it comes to actual press conference. But a few things that stuck out to me that I was concerned about. One, I mean, I don't know exactly where you stand on it about Aaron Rodgers, and I think I have a good idea of where you stand on it. Like the year was good. It was. I am on the record saying that this is the best quarterback play that the Steelers have had since Ben's retired, and honestly, probably better than the last year of Ben as well. Just because I think Aaron was able to do a little bit more physically than what that last year of Ben was able to do. However, like I don't think that it was a great year, and I don't think that it's necessarily something that you want to look forward to, bringing a guy that's going to turn 43 years old during the season as your starting quarterback. Now, ultimately, if that's the thing that they have to do because there's no other options and they would have rolled with Mason Rudolph and Will Howard otherwise, then so be it. But the fact that he said definitely, that's one where I'm like, I don't necessarily know that Mike McCarthy actually feels that way, but like I feel like that's just kind of an easy answer to give. So I'm not going to, kind of like what I was alluding to with the Penguins, I'm not going to give a ton of stock into him actually wanting Aaron Rodgers for sure as the quarterback, but I guess the quarterback position is something that was concerning to me. Being talked about that, and I'll move on to like Will Howard as well in this, or Will Howard, and how. And not that I actually think Mike McCarthy thinks that he can make Will Howard the starting quarterback this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or that he will be. Maybe my bigger concern is that this has kind of added more fuel to the fire with people wanting Will Howard as a starting quarterback.
100%.
And talking about how he likes what he sees there, and it's funny that he mentioned in his interview with the Cowboys that he lied about something with Jerry Jones. He lied about like watching every play of the 2019 season to Jerry Jones, and it was Drew. It was Drew. If you don't follow the Around the 412 fantasy show, go ahead. Drew's on there with Joe, but it was Drew. He said like, if someone was like, what was the thing that Mike McCarthy lied about? And he said something about how he likes Will Howard as the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like, that's another thing that was like concerning to me, just the way they were talking about quarterback. Now, I think that Mike McCarthy should be given the benefit of the doubt in some areas of the team, quarterback being one of them. I think that's probably one of the exciting parts about bringing him in as head coach, is what he can do at the quarterback position and that development. But as far as when it comes to just Aaron Rodgers with just Will Howard, not really excited about being talked about in the press conference. And then the other thing is just like the overall roster, saying that he likes the state of the roster. And this is another thing where it's like, are you really going to like roast the roster? Like how are the guys actually going to feel about
half
that?
the roster is free agents,
but
so
half the roster is free agents. And I don't really think that you have like a great, like it's not a bad roster, but it's not like a great roster. The one thing that I will say that I kind of liked that he talked about was the relationship with the wide receivers, and he thinks that getting the wide receiver room and having the best combinations out of your wide receiver room related it to his wide receiver rooms whenever he had like Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and Green Bay, getting the best matchups. Yeah, play all three spots, get the best matchups out of your wide receivers. And just hearing the way that he was talking about the wide receivers made me feel like we might actually see some different route trees and different alignments than what we are used to, especially the last couple of years under Arthur Smith. Maybe see some more creative offense from him when it comes to the wide receivers. And I'm curious to see how they're going to address that, whether it comes to free agency or the draft when it comes to that position. Those are the things off the top of my head. Is there anything else that you stuck out to you as far as like negative or positive that you took away from the press conference?
Well, there was one big positive to me, which I'll get to, but I kind of want to go through everything that you just said. It backtracked a little bit, because to me, the Rodgers thing, it would have been easy for them to just say the door's open. I think saying definitely is much more of a statement than you would normally see. And to say that they've already had conversation, like Mike McCarthy already had a conversation with Aaron. If I was betting right now, I would take him as the odds-on favorite to be the Steelers starting quarterback. How I feel about that, to be honest, it's going to sound weird because I didn't want Mike McCarthy to begin with, and I didn't want Aaron Rodgers back. But now that Mike McCarthy's back, I'm more open to it because he kicked the can down the road already at coach. So, like, you know, you're not starting fresh there. If you're also not doing that at quarterback, does it really matter? For one, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't know that option exists. To me, it kind of puts them on the track of like, man, are they going to have, or is Will Howard really about to get a shot at some point here? Could it be an entire year of development now? Because he didn't get that fully last year, obviously with his injury. And then maybe like legit be part of an open competition in 27 after they have him a full year in Mike McCarthy's West Coast system, which, by the way, is like a perfect fit for Will. Like, I'm not saying that I am all of a sudden much higher on him as a player, as a prospect, but like if he was going to work in an offense, I think it would be a West Coast offense, which Mike McCarthy runs, because it masks the lack of arm strength there. It's more about precision and decision-making, which I think Will Howard offers. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like I'm more open to Aaron because of McCarthy being the coach. That's what I'll say. Didn't love obviously either aspect of that, but more open to it because that first domino has already fallen. In terms of the roster, I mean, I completely agree. Don't think it's anywhere close. I would have liked to have seen them. And when I say them, I mean the media that was in there today, specifically asked him about the offensive line, because I think that is an area where you saw a pretty significant jump. And I'm curious as to like if he feels that way. That's where it starts. I liked. So you only get one. I liked Alan's question. I didn't think he had a great answer from Omar, and he asked about the process really that led them to McCarthy, but didn't get a great answer from them. But that's not necessarily his fault. Some of those questions that are in there.
Also, shout out to Nick, by the way. Nick is the one that got the wide receiver answer. Yeah,
which I thought could turn into like just pass catchers in general, but it didn't. Like Mike McCarthy just took it right to Jordy Nelson, which didn't necessarily surprise me. But the positive that I said I wanted to come back to, though, was about the coaching staff, because that's what I'm going to be curious about is the expansion or possible expansion of the coaching staff. And when he was kind of outlining what you want and like the blend of coaches, he mentioned getting like younger, newer, fresher ideas in there and getting like these young dogs at the bottom of this that like they're grinders. I think that's the way he referred to them, that want to work, know they have to work themselves at the totem pole and are just like all hands on deck. So I can't wait to see how the staff is built out. I already have some ideas. Our boy DB put out there that Patrick Graham is going to be the defensive coordinator, like very firmly stated that. They're going to go through the interview process. Wouldn't surprise me if that is ultimately the dude. I'm not going to doubt DB. I'm just saying that I have not officially heard that that's going to be the case. They have to go through a process still if he's going to be the guy. I'm on board with that. I wanted him or Al Harris. I think Patrick Graham is certainly the safer option, so that kind of matches the head coaching hire that they made. He comes from the front seven background, former player. Obviously, he's been a linebackers coach. He's been a defensive line coach. His defenses have kind of always overachieved when you look at like what they were paying on that side of the ball and the results that they were getting. He has had like 3 top 10 defenses in his entire career, but you look at the money spent, the resources spent, probably shouldn't have even have been the case to have that many. So, I mean, outside of Max Crosby, who did he really have in Vegas? So I think he's always been overachieving a little bit. I'll be curious to see like, do they pair him with like a senior defensive assistant on the back end or just get him like a traditional defensive backs coach? That's going to be the things that I have in my mind about the size of the staff.
Those are the 2 names that I would have brought up for the defensive side too, and that's nothing new, but I do like both of those names with Patrick Graham and Al Harris. If Patrick Graham is going to be the case, I think that that's a better hire than probably some would see on the surface. A lot of them would probably just look at what he did in Las Vegas and not be thrilled with how the results ended up. But I think we like what you're saying with Max Crosby only being the guy, especially in that front seven for Las Vegas. I feel like he was doing the best that he could with the personnel given. And so I think that would be good, especially at one point he was the run game coordinator as well whenever he was in Green Bay with Mike McCarthy. And so you look at the struggles that the Steelers have had on that facet in the front seven of stopping the run. Maybe he can bring some new ideas and insight to that. Al Harris was the one that if there could have been one that was like my guy, I think Al Harris would have turned into my guy if this process prolonged. And maybe that's because I just like what he can bring from the backside of the defense. He's been the defensive backs coach with the Cowboys and most recently the Chicago Bears this year. The Chicago Bears also lead the NFL in interceptions. And
think about when he was in Dallas.
Whenever he was in Dallas, they were top 10 in interceptions every single year. Look at what he did in the 1 year with Trayvon Diggs. I mean, I understand that he gave up 1,000 yards as well, but yeah, I think that both of those options would have been great options. Al Harris may have turned into my guy, but if Patrick Graham is the actual defensive coordinator, if DB does in fact become right, then I think that both of those guys would have been solid options for Mike McCarthy to bring in. And this is probably something that you're going to see that's like new to the Steelers in something that has been debated for a long time. Because Mike Tomlin was the head coach. There was always debate among Steeler fans about how much is it Mike Tomlin calling the defense versus Terrell Austin or guys before Terrell Austin himself. I mean, we ultimately knew that answer, but there was still debate. There's no debate anymore. Mike McCarthy is going to be calling plays on offense, and whoever they bring in as DC is going to be calling the defense. It's black and white.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there. Mike McCarthy addressed that in his opening presser, and I think that's where it's an interesting conversation for me when it comes to what they're going to do at OC now, because with that being out there, I think that attracts a different sort of candidate for the offensive coordinator. If you're somebody that wants to call the plays, suddenly Pittsburgh doesn't seem like a place that is going to be a viable option, because Mike McCarthy's going to be calling the offense. They did bring in Lunda Wells from the Cowboys, their tight ends coach,
Really
for an interview. Really good coach. You look at the development that they've done with the tight ends and
they kept him
in Dallas. They kept him with
Dallas
Schottenheimer
even after McCarthy.
100%. I think that would be a good hire. The one that really intrigues me when it comes to the quarterback position the most, and this is someone that has been talked about a little bit over the past few days, Scott Tolzien out of New Orleans, quarterbacks coach in New Orleans. Seeing what he was able to do with Tyler Shuck in year one, a guy that nobody had any expectation for, turned into a pretty good rookie campaign. I would be very curious to see if he would be someone that they bring in for an interview, because obviously as a quarterbacks coach, he'd probably be okay with the elevation to offensive coordinator and not have the play calling ability. It would still be a promotion for him. So like out of the offensive side of the ball, with Lunda Wells being a candidate already getting the interview, Scott Tolzien would be my other guy that I would bring in for an interview. I mean, I'm sure. I say I'm sure that they're going to bring in multiple guys, but I don't know. They only brought in 3 for in-person interviews for the head coach. So maybe with coordinators, Mike McCarthy just will deal with a couple of guys, and that's it.
I feel confident they're going to cast a little bit of a net here at OC. Lunda Wells, Scott Tolzien, Alex Van Pelt, Luke Detsy. I think those are the 4 names to watch. I'll talk about
Tolzien. Or 2 Pittsburgh guys.
Yeah, and obviously all ties to Mike already. Like, I don't know that he's going to go outside of his bubble, if you will. Tolzien is the name to me, much like you, that I have intrigued, because I think he's kind of on that same path. Like, he's very like Kellen Moore-like, if you look at his resume a little bit. I think that he's firmly on track to be an OC as his next stepping stone. And like the play calling aspect is where it really gets tricky, because if he comes here and be's the OC, and yes, it's a step up, despite not calling plays, but then he can't move laterally to another offensive coordinator spot where he could potentially have the opportunity to call plays, unless, and I should have asked Alan about this before bringing it up. Maybe somebody in the comments will know, and I could get clarification before we talk next week. I'm curious to see if he could potentially have it written in his contract where it's like, if I get an OC opportunity where I could call plays, then I'm allowed to take that job. I'd be curious on that, because I think that that's the one thing that's kind of like, it's almost like a disservice, if you will. We talked about this last week for like a Clay Kubiak or somebody like that, or LaFleur, Mike LaFleur. That's the Rams OC, about to, sounds like, become the coach of the Cardinals, where you're working under McVay and you're not calling plays. So, you know, it's interesting to see. But I think those are the names to watch. Tolzien, by the way, working right now with Garrett Nussmeier's dad, who's the offensive coordinator of the Saints. So I'll just say this. If Scott Tolzien ends up getting brought to Pittsburgh to be the OC, there's already Nussmeier connections with McCarthy as well. Tolzien's actually down at the Senior Bowl right now as the coach for the Senior Bowl, one of the coaches at the Senior Bowl. So he's with Nussmeier there too. If Tolzien becomes the OC here, I would place a little bit of a wager on the Steelers drafting Garrett Nussmeier on day 2.
His Senior Bowl measures just came out. He's 6'1", 203, 204. Pretty spot on to what he was listed at as LSU. I don't know if there was some concern about that, but I did see people talking about that on Twitter today.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure that those numbers will be propped up even more at his pro.
By the way, how did you get measured at the Senior Bowl? Diego Pavia, what are we doing? How are you? How do you have the attitude that you do? And you were 5'9", quite literally a pit bull.
He's shorter than Kyler.
I wonder what his hands are like.
That wasn't put out as well. He didn't do hand measurements.
I don't know. I didn't see anybody talking about that, but 5'9" and 7/8 or whatever the measurement was.
Yeah. The other guys there, Luke Getsy was somebody I was very intrigued by at one point in time, but has not been very successful as of late. It hasn't gone well. Alex Van Pelt. I was talking to some Browns fans that actually kind of gave like a little bit of a ringing endorsement towards him. Like, think it was more about Stefanski than it was him in terms of why it went south. Like the on-off play calling duties and stuff like that. So again, you talk about somebody coming here to not call plays, more defines the role. Tolzien with the track that he's on right now, having the quarterback background, that hopefully being something we get started soon in terms of developing the next guy. If I could pick my guy, that's who the next OC would be.
Yeah, I agree with that. That would be my guy that they bring in. You mentioned Alex Van Pelt, another guy that is currently with the or I guess was with the Rams. He's a senior offensive assistant with the Rams, so not necessarily the traditional like McVay tree as far as coaching goes, but like at least he would be coming from that system. And anytime you get somebody from around. This year, senior offensive assistants in 2025. Last year, he was the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. Last year being 2024. And then he was the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in Cleveland from 2020 to 2023. Bengals quarterbacks coach 2018 and 19. Quarterbacks coach in Green Bay for 3 years, 14 to 17. Running backs coach for 12 to 13 in Green Bay. Was in Tampa Bay as a quarterbacks coach in 2010 to 2011. He's been with the Bills for several years.
That was his first stop.
And that was his first stop. Yeah. So, yeah, he's been quite around. But
I mean, he's 55, but that like all those stops he just listed, I would have guessed he was probably like the same age as McCarthy. Like he's been in the NFL since probably what, like 08, somewhere around there.
06 is whenever he was offensive quality control coach. Yes, a decade.
Or, I'm sorry, 20 years.
2 decades, 20 years in the NFL. Yes.
Okay. If I was ranking them,
by the way,
I would say
the quarterback's coach for the Frankfurt Galaxy in Germany. By the way, that's where he started his coaching career.
Actually, I believe he spent time with the Steelers as a player. Because I know he's a big guy.
1993, Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay. Yeah. If I was ranking them, I'm going Tolzien, Van Pelt, Lunda Wells, Getsy.
I think because, I would probably agree with the order. The only ones I might swap are Van Pelt and Wells, just because of how highly thought of he is in Dallas.
I mean, I get it.
Like there's something there, and he's not going to have the play calling that he has to worry about.
Mm-hmm. The only thing to me is the quarterback background. Like that's why.
Okay, that's fair.
I think Lunda Wells is. If you're just saying which one's a better coach, I'm probably leaning Wells. But specifically for what I want here, I'm going Van Pelt.
That's fair. I think that's totally fair, and I think that's probably something that is a good indicator of the way that they're going to go. It's like who they bring in, maybe like not necessarily for 2026, but like for the future of what they're going to do at the position. If they're going to emphasize quarterback, or are they going to bring in somebody that has that quarterback background? We could probably play an ad, and then there's one last thing I want to talk to you about.
Just about my fingers on it right now. I'll bring it over.
Let's play that ad, talk about Shop Yins, and then we can close this thing out talking about potentially quarterback position.
Okay. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412 had to take a quick second to tell you about our newest sponsor, Shop Yins. A lot of people have been asking me about Around the 412 merch. We got it. Down below is the link, shopyins.com. Save yourself $10 off a minimum purchase of $30, which is basically like you're just buying one t-shirt. If you're over there right now, orders of $75 or more also get free shipping. And while you're over there, don't just check out our Around the 412 stuff. Taylor's got Penguin stuff, Steelers stuff, Pirate stuff, a bunch of good stuff always coming out. Hoodies, I'm actually rocking mine right now. T-shirts, hats, stickers, flags. He's got a bunch of stuff, koozies going on over there right now. Go check all of it out. We appreciate the support that you guys have given us. We appreciate our guy Taylor. Go check it out, shopyins.com.
Okay, so obviously a lot of court talk is going to be continuing to happen about the quarterback position, whether it comes to their coaching staff, who they're going to bring in, or the actual quarterback itself. I know that we talked about Aaron Rodgers already and what that future could look like. You said that if you're putting like the betting on favorite, you would predict it as Aaron Rodgers for the 2026 season, and don't mind that pairing with Mike McCarthy being the head coach. But I want to kind of like set that aside for a second. Now, say Aaron Rodgers is not coming back, whether that means he's retiring, whether that means he's going to Minnesota, he's not going to be in Pittsburgh as the quarterback. Where would you go personally? And then there's a couple options that I want to bring up just because I feel like there has been a lot of connection, not necessarily connection as far as like connecting dots, but just like a lot of people have talked about like the potential of signing Malik Willis. Now, I don't know if you've seen like his projected contract of like 2 years, $50 million. I'm not sure how much guaranteed on that contract would be, but would you be okay with that number? Would Malik Willis be someone that you would be interested in? The Steelers bringing in, how do you think it would fit with a Mike McCarthy offense? Because I feel like they cannot go into this offseason with just Mason Rudolph and Will Howard. Like, I just do not see how they're going to come out of a starter with just those two guys. I feel like one is going to have to come from elsewhere if it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers.
And I feel like if Aaron Rodgers is back, they might move Mason in some form or fashion, whatever that looks like. Because I think they're going to add an outside addition at quarterback, whether it be through the draft. Like I said, if Tolzien's brought in, I think Garrett Nussmeier on day 2, the odds of that shoot up. But let's say Aaron's not back, and which route I would go. I still think, even though it's not like to me the first fit that I would think of, Malik Willis still makes sense. I still would like the idea of developing him with Mike McCarthy, with whoever's brought in on his staff, just looking at like the developmental background, who I think he's going to fill with the staff with, whether or not it's the names we mentioned or other people, it's going to be somebody of that same vein. Still like the idea of that. I'll throw 2 names your way, and I don't love them in general, but for Mike McCarthy's offense, fit like a glove. Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins. West Coast offense.
Man, you just named the 2 white guys that don't have any motion whatsoever. I seeing what Mac Jones did in San Francisco's offense this year, like it's easy to.
There's
talk
gonna be
about
people
why.
that convince. There's gonna be people that convince themselves that he can do the Sam Darnold thing, and the Baker Mayfield thing. And
I am not one of those guys. I don't think that would happen, but could they come in and just operate the system like you saw in San Francisco this year? And I think that's why San Francisco is such a moldable offense for quarterbacks, because you can pretty much just pick up and place most quarterbacks that are competent, especially heads like from the shoulders up, and they can operate in that offense. So from that standpoint, I think that Mac Jones could probably be placed into this offense and can operate it. At least as well as any of the other candidates that they currently have. I just don't see how you're going to get a type of elevation of play from Mac Jones where you'd be comparing him to what Sam Darnold has done the last 2 years or what Baker Mayfield has done in Tampa. I don't see that. Kirk Cousins, he's another one where it's like, at that point, why not just bring back Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion? But if the scenario is that Aaron Rodgers is not coming back, then it's probably, I feel similarly to Kirk Cousins as I do to Mac Jones, just maybe a little bit less athletic, which is funny to say, like just because he's got the more years, a little more tread on those tires. Those are just so, it almost matches the coaching hire. They're just like so uninspired of quarterback signings.
But, what's out there that
but
doesn't
that's the
inspire?
thing. That's the thing. There's nothing that is going to be doing that, except for a guy like Malik Willis potentially, and which is ultimately funny, especially if it comes full circle to him being the guy, because back in 2022 it was all about Malik Willis until it was Kenny Pickett on night 1 of the draft. So to see that come full circle would be fun. Another name I want to throw out there not necessarily it wouldn't be a free agent signing, but as a potential trade. And I only bring this up because last night I was watching Nick Faribaugh, our buddy, on 93.7 The Fan with Donnie Football. He brought it up, and I just listen. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want to get your thought on it anyway. How would you feel if the Steelers traded for a guy like Kyler Murray? Because he said that Mike McCarthy likes Kyler Murray. Didn't really add much to it besides that, but said
there was an article written about it years
Kyler
ago.
Murray.
Todd Archer, who covers the Dallas Cowboys, there was like an excerpt of his article that's been going around. I'm assuming it was a week where the Cowboys were playing the Cardinals and McCarthy was talking about Kyler. But if you go back to today's press conference and how they outlined, what they look for in their quarterbacks ideally, and where the game is going at the position. Now, of course, Aaron does not match that. So
I'll say, well, why would he want Aaron Rodgers then?
Right. So I don't know that we're going to see that in the short term play out, but I get what he was saying in terms of the long term outlook at the position. The thing to me, though, is that's great from like an athleticism standpoint. Kyler Murray is 5'10". He is an outlier at the position who people thought, Russell Wilson did it, so it can happen. We got to a point where some teams were viewing outliers as the new precedent, which is not the case. Carolina is going to end up giving some massive contract to Bryce Young, probably, that they will very soon regret, in my opinion. I do not think Kyler Murray is worth the contract that he's currently on, so certainly wouldn't be trading for him. I don't know what type of capital you're talking about giving up. And even if he were released, I assume somebody would give him a second year or more money or something like that, that would make it more worthwhile for him than the risk that I would be willing to take, because it's not one worth taking, in my opinion. I am sick of having quarterbacks that are limited in some form or fashion, whether it's just like athletically tapped out, like Aaron Rodgers, or too short to see over the line of scrimmage, like Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, that you are just eliminating half of an offensive playbook to accommodate having that player on your roster. I want to get out of this position at the quarterback position, the most important spot. For that reason, hell no on Kyler Murray.
You could have said I'm out, and you could have played into Shark Tank. Did that cross your mind a second ago? I agree with you. I don't really have any interest in Kyler Murray as far as like athletic ability.
Crazy.
Okay, go ahead.
I would rather have Tua.
In the cold weather.
I'm not that interested in it, but if I had to pick between them, I would rather have Tua. Because, I mean, his game kind of matches, like, not the strongest arm, but throws with a ton of anticipation, relatively accurate. I feel like that's kind of gone away a little bit. But like player profile, what he was at his best, it matches, I think, what they would want to do. Again, not that interested. Just saying, if you're picking between the two high-priced quarterbacks that could be moved this offseason, I'd rather have Tua than Kyler.
Would you rather have... Okay, little King of the Hill moment for a second. So you'd rather have Tua than Kyler. Would you rather have Kyler or Shador?
Kyler.
Kyler or Geno?
Oh, brother. Oh, last year was so bad. That's like not even a question. Like, 10 months ago,
right?
I'm gonna just assume that I'll say Kyler. Geno's probably just washed. Like, I don't know what happened last year. If there was some way for me to explain it and just say, oh, it was probably just, but like, there's not. There's no explanation to me. So, Kyler.
Kyler or JJ McCarthy?
Oh, God. Kyler. Although JJ's on a rookie contract. I don't know what contract Kyler would be on. Let's assume he's cut and it wouldn't be very. I'll say Kyler still.
Kyler and Michael Penix.
Kyler.
Kyler or Joe Flacco?
Oh. No, I think this is where I'm putting way too much stock in like just watching him dice us up. It's Kyler.
You thought about it though. You thought about it.
Yeah.
Kyler or Spencer Rattler?
Ooh. I'm gonna say Rattler. I think I know that they had to see what they had in Shuck this year. You had to make that switch. But I thought Rattler in a vacuum, you look at his play, I thought he was completely fine this year for the Saints. Like I don't think they had to make that switch.
Okay. Last
from a
one.
Football perspective.
Kyler or Shedeur Sanders?
I thought you asked me that already.
Mm-mm.
Kyler.
Okay.
I'm taking Kyler over everybody you said besides Tua and Spencer Rattler.
Kyler or Mac Jones?
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones or Kirk Cousins?
Mac Jones. Let's just do this. Out of anybody that you could possibly say, I think, out of options that could be available, Malik Willis, Mac Jones. I think I'd put Rattler third. I'd have him above Tua. And I think if you might be bringing his quarterback's coach in as the OC and Scott Tolzien.
Yeah, that's fair. And are any of those guys above Aaron Rodgers?
Oh. I mean, Malik is.
Would you put Mac?
Oh, that is so close. It's pretty much a wash to me, which is then why I'd say keep the guy that played with guys last year.
It's kind of sad that the 5-year-old, 6-year-old. How old is Mac Jones? He's probably like what, 20?
I would guess
26, 7.
Yeah, I would guess 26.
Say even at the oldest, the 27-year-old is a wash to the 43-year-old.
Yeah, just from like familiarity, he's 27.
Yeah,
he'll turn 28 before opening day next year, though.
Sheesh, didn't know he was an unk.
Yeah, but like that was just sad what we just did. That just goes to show you.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't agree with it, but I understand why people are trying to make Will Howard a thing.
I was about to ask any of those guys we named the entire time, or year 3 Will Howard, knowing that he's going to sit another year under Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, well, I mean, the thing is, like, there's going to be other quarterbacks available,
right,
after the season. So, like,
and you'd think, especially if they don't take Nussmeier, that next year I feel like they're almost for sure going to take one. Then again, people said that about.
We're just say it every year. So. Yeah, we're just say it every year until it happens. Kicking the can down the road, baby.
Are we officially out on Ty Simpson? Like that's out. Not that we were ever in on it, but like, is that out?
I'll be honest. Depending on what the staff looks like, if Rodgers is coming back, it's a little bit attractive. I mean, he's a better prospect than Will Howard. So, like, the problem is I don't want to invest what's going to have to be invested from a draft pick perspective to get him.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's like some complete zero as a prospect either.
No.
If you were like, okay, you got to spend your 3rd round pick to get this player. Yeah, sure. You got to spend your 1st round pick and potentially even trade up from that 1st round pick to do it. No.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mekhi Lemon. I'm on the Mekhi Lemon train.
I'm on the wide receiver train. Him, and while I don't like, honestly, before the Mike McCarthy hire, I wasn't as high on this player because I didn't know what type of offense like would be best for him. Casey Concepcion Great fit for Mike McCarthy. That's his
Great
Randall
name,
Cobb.
by the way.
Yeah. That's his Randall Cobb if they get him.
Imagine
they need
Yinzer was trying
underneath
to
route
say
runners. I'm trying to. Honestly, I'm like,
yeah, I don't know how they'd say it.
I'm assuming that they would try to say conception, but I'm even trying to think like with the accent. Mike McCarthy is fantastic, by the way. The way he said hired.
Hired.
And then when he said, yeah, things are going hard. Yeah. All right. Great episode. We're an hour and 5 into this. We got to get out of here. Any closing thoughts? We're gonna do another one of these in a week. So
a coaching change has made our episodes longer.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess we won't be doing
for our Steelers shows over the last like 3 weeks has been over an hour plus. When normally even in season it's like 45, 50.
Yeah, well, we probably won't have another one of these for at least a little bit. Maybe 3 years plus.
That's true.
Even if it
never
doesn't
had
go
one
well.
before.
Yeah, I'll bank on the side of history there. All right, good stuff. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit us in the comments, your thoughts, anything that we talked about today, question for a future episode, drop that down below. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, we're also there. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Just search Around the 412. And then whether you're watching or listening, the links in the description for all of our great sponsors are there, which we talked about throughout the course of this episode, except for one, which we're about to do right now, the logo right above Tyler right now for Marcelo Electric. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412 here. Had to take a quick second to tell you about Marcelo Electric, serving Beaver, Allegheny, Lawrence, and Butler County. Whether it's residential, commercial, or service calls, our boy Brandon Marcelo's got you covered. 724-614-0611. Again, that's Marcelo Electric, 724-614-0611. The link below in the description takes you to his Facebook page. All his contact information is there, as well as a lot of the projects that he's been working on. Does great work. Couldn't recommend him enough. Much more stuff on the way from us next week. We'll see what we can talk about. Well, I assume the staff should get built this week. So we'll talk about the staff and what that looks like next week on the show. If you're a Penguins fan, stay tuned for that episode this week as well. I'll be honest. They're good.
The boys are cooking.
We can't talk about it being a mirage anymore.
Speaking of kicking the can down the road, we cannot kick the can down the road anymore that this is going to be come crashing down. They're good.
Who's Gavin McKenna?
They beat the piss out of Western Canada.
Yeah. Yep. I'm on board with this whole thing. 51st state. You got me. I was skeptical at first about it. The Penguins themselves went to Canada to take ownership and make them the 51st state. No. All jokes aside, I am looking forward to watching Penguin games right now.
Yeah.
Which did not think would be the case coming into the season. It'd be like a chore more than anything else, and just watching for Sid and the young kids. But
I'm gonna need to know, because obviously I'm not going to be going to any games time soon. I need to know if it's already happening or if it's going to be happening in the near future. Whenever Stuart Skinner makes a save, is it going to be like Muth, where you're just going to hear Stu
all the time? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have some friends that are going Thursday, so. I don't know. I assume he'll be starting. Like we talked about this on the show. No reason for us to be talking about it right now. But anyways, while we're having the conversation, very clearly, I feel like they now acknowledge he is the number one guy.
I mean, they put out a graphic that he's 7-1 in his last 8 starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for the service, She Loves. We'll still need you from time to time.
They probably haven't tweeted about She Loves outside of him being in the net as a starter since the start of the season.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, look forward to the Penguins episode this week. Stay on the lookout for that. If you hit that notification bell, you'll know exactly when that is posted. Hit us up everywhere at Around the 412. Live tweet during the games, or at least try to. So get at us on there as well. You can follow Tyler, Wild_Teeks33, and then you'll find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Tyler, myself, this has been another Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.